You're listening to The Hikam with Shaykh Zahir Bacchus of the Lotri Foundation. In this podcast, Shaykh Zahir explains the aphorisms from Ibn Ata'illah's famous book of wisdoms, Al-Hikam Al-Ata'iyah, a classical manual of spiritual development. Visit seekershub.org for online courses, our reliable answer service, and engaging media.
Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Allahumma alimna ma yanfa'ana وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما بفضلك وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. So we're on number 97 and 98 in the Hikam of Ibn Ata'illah, Shaykh Ibn Ata'illah rahmatullahi alayhi. So he says they cover similar things or concepts. So he says, Rahimahullah Ta'ala, نعمتان ما خرج موجود عنهما ولا بد لكل مكون منهما نعمة الإيجاد ونعمة الإمداد. So he says in 97 that two blessings that nothing that exists can do without, two blessings that nothing can exist, that anything that exists can do without, and every single being requires the blessing of being brought into existence, ni'mat al-ijad, the blessings of being brought into existence, wa ni'mat al-imdad, and the blessing of continuation, or what is made to continue, the blessing of made to continue, ni'mat al-imdad. 98, he says, أنعم عليك أولا بالإيجاد وثانيا بتوالي الإمداد. So he says that he has blessed you first by creating you, and second by unceasingly preserving you. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has first given you, He has created you, given you existence, and secondly, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you the blessing of preserving you, of keeping you in existence and guiding you. Part of the imdad is not just that what comes after keeping you in existence, is the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided you, took you from dhulumat ila nur, yakhrujukum min dhulumat ila nur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken you out of darkness. You can say, some have said, out of non-existence into nur, into existence, in which the existence, nur, entails that one verifies and one sees and that one recognizes and comes to ma'rifah, comes to knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the ni'mah of imdad. The ni'mah of ijad, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us. This is a ni'mah. Without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creating us, we'll be nothing. We'll be in non-existence. And with non-existence, it means nothing would have happened. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in this way, Shaykh Ibn Ata'illah wants us to reflect and wants us to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ, and you do not have any ni'mah, nothing, you do not have any blessings except فَمِنَ اللَّهِ, except that it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the ni'mah here that he says ni'matani, or in the second one أَنَّمَ عَلَيْكُمْ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you first by creating you, or ni'matani, that the two blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to you, مَا خَرَجَ مَوْجُودْ أَنْهُمْ, and it's necessary for you to have the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creating you and bringing you into this world. The ni'mah, the blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He created the arwah, when He created all of the souls, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gathered all of the souls together that He created to verify the fact that that they recognize that belief, or they recognize that blessing. What blessing? When He gathered the soul, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, the day that He created all the souls is the day that He brought them together, and He posed a question to them. What question did He pose to them? Alastu bi rabbikum? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked all of the souls that He created, all of the arwah that He created, every soul that He created that was to be brought here into this world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked them that, am I not your Lord? Am I not the one who created you? I'm not the one who sustains you. Am I not the one who will take you from one level to the next? Am I not the one who will be merciful to you and be compassionate to you? So the souls, when He gathered them and posed this question to them, the soul unceasingly all said what? They said, Bala. They said, of course. They verified what? That they understood that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them. And then the souls came into this world. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought the souls in this world. And the souls in this world, when they come into this world and they verify the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they verify that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is their Lord, they have been connected then back to that reality, the reality of when they were first created. They're connected back to that time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought them together and asked and posed them that question. They're brought back to that time. They're connected back to that time and to that particular instance in where the souls were before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where their souls was before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That verification of the person in this world is nur. That verification brings to them nur. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, يُخْرِجُكُم مِّن ظُلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ, that He is taking you from dhulumat, darkness. He's taking you from dhulumat, darkness. Some of the ulama of tafsir, they say dhulumat of that dhulumat, that darkness is the darkness of rejecting of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wa na'udhu billah, is the rejection of what is known to the soul. What is known to the soul, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is their Lord. That's what's known to the soul. The rejection of it keeps one into dhulumat, in darkness. Keeps one in dhulumat, into darkness. When you are in darkness, you don't see where to go. When you are in darkness, can you maneuver correctly? Can you maneuver correctly when you are in complete darkness? No one can maneuver correctly when they're in darkness. They don't see obstacles that may be in their path. They may not know how to go or get over those obstacles. They may not know how to traverse the way. They may not even know the way to go. They may not know the way to go when they're in darkness. When you're in darkness, you don't know. And so you may hit something. You may fall. You may injure yourself. When it comes to the soul who's in darkness, when it comes to the person who's in darkness, that injuring of the person, of the soul, is caused by sin. The injuring is sin, falling into sin. The falling into sin. When the soul is brought into nur, when the soul is brought into light, the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is guidance. This is guidance, and this is part of imdad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken you and continued you on. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a blessing. And the blessing gets multiplied. It gets multiplied. And so the person, not only does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him or made her to continue, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them continue in light. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made them continue in guidance, so that they can traverse knowing what is right and knowing what is wrong. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He brought them from darkness and He brought them into light, the light of guidance, so that they can see. They can see what is right, they can see what is wrong. And when you're in light, when you're in guidance, you may not see everything. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so vast that you may not see everything. You may see just a particular aspect of the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You may just see parts of that light. That's why some of the ulama, like Imam Malik rahmatullahi said, ilm nur. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal also said the same thing. He says that knowledge is light. Al-ilm nurun. Al-ilmu nurun. That knowledge is light. Knowledge is light. And light can be blinding. And it can be blinding. And light, when it disperses, like you have the sun is rising now. It's not risen yet. The sun is rising. When the sun rises, it casts that nur, it casts that light on everything. Can you see to the east of us, even though it's in light? Can you see to the west of us, even though it's in light? No, we're limited. We are limited until we go there. And so ilm, when knowledge is light, that you may only see what you see in your vicinity. But when you go there, then you see other light. Then you see that other places that are enlightened. And this is what happens to the servant. The servant continues on, and they continue worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they continue to verify the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they continue to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what? For ni'mah, for the blessings. For the blessings. Part of imdad is the seeing of blessings. Part of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessing one with the continuance. Part of it is the continuance of seeing blessings, of being not only in the light, but the recognition that one is in light, the recognition that one is guided, that recognition that one is guided. That recognition, when one is guided, powers one to do what? To worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It powers one. Once you recognize that you are guided, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preferred you over everyone else or over others, that Allah has preferred you. Why has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preferred you to be guided? That will come to you in the next world, or maybe not. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preferred you for guidance. That recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preferencing you, there's something to it. What is to it? What then is required of you? What is required of you, of us, is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not kept us in darkness. We're here. We're sitting. We're in the masjid. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not kept us in darkness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surrounded us with light. What is then the requirement? If you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you guidance, surrounding you with light, what then is your requirement? What then is what should we do then? What we have to do then is worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we have to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is the verification of the ni'mah of ijad, that Allah created us, and the ni'mah al-imdad, and the blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preserved us and is preserving us, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making us continue. And so it's a ni'mah, as Shaykh ibn Ata'illah has told us. It's a ni'mah. It's a ni'mah that is the beginning of the ni'mah. It's the beginning of ni'mah. And it leads, and that leads to what? The recognition of success, of tawfiq. That all of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses us with, He blessed us to come this morning to Fajr. He blessed us to stay back. He blessed us perhaps to hear something and act upon it. He blessed us with hearing the recitation of the Quran. These blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with are successes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're successes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the servant is not only put into guidance and guided and put into light, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also grants the servants tawfiq. He grants them success. He grants them success. He inspires them. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala causes them to act on that inspiration. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses them on the action. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them success in the action. What is the success? The success of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepting the action. That is the success. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. And there's no success except that it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no success except that it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what is the true meaning of imdad to us? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspires you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you, fashioned you. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought you into existence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided you and placed you in light and gave you guidance. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired you to work and to worship Him. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused the action to occur. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants success with the acceptance of the action once it's sincere towards Him. And then what? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reunites you to Himself. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reunites the servants to Himself. All of it is from what? All of it is from the ni'mah of what? Of ijad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought you into existence. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to know Him at the end. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants the servant to come to know Him. And once they know Him, then they continue in the path of worshipping Him. They continue in the path of worshipping and being obedient servants to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, replenished in that light. The light can blind you, of course. The light can blind you, but do not let the light veil you from seeing that. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala casts His guidance or brings nur, or in the form of knowledge, that do not let it be short-sighted. Do not be short-sighted in thinking that the nur, in terms of knowledge, that it's just what you see or what you are surrounded. No, it can be mali'an, it could be filled. And that's what knowledge is, it's filled. So don't let it blind you by taking and seeing just a little of it. Don't be short-sighted. Don't be short-sighted in it. But recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants what is best for you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants what is best for the servant. Then it's upon the servant to then thank Him for it. and then thank Him for it and worship Him as true servants of Him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us, guide us, and forgive us, have mercy upon us. Forgive our elders, our parents, give them good health and long life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide all those who are in need of guidance. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive all those who are in need of forgiveness. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who have passed away, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them His mercies, maghfirah and shade. Those who are sick and ill, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heal them and cure them, nurse them back to good health. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve all of us and all of the believers on His deen. Help us to recognize the ni'mah and to thank Him for it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue us in ni'mah, increase us in knowledge and practice of the deen and understanding of our faith. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our children, keep on the straight path, make their footing firm in a siratul mustaqim. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve them and preserve us, grant us tawfiq in this world and grant us success in the next world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our homes amongst the homes of the believers and make our last words our very best words. سبحانك وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.
Thank you for listening to The Hikam with Shaykh Zahir Bacchus. Help Seekers Hub spread the light of guidance to millions around the world by supporting us through monthly donations by going to seekershub.org/donate. Your donations are tax deductible in the US and Canada.